Hi there, Misfits. Today we'll have a look at the legendary career of Sir Jackie Stewart. So let's get into this.
Now I'm going to retrace the steps of one of my all-time heroes, 70s F1 legend Sir Jackie Stewart.
I'm Jackie Stewart and I'm a racing driver.
It's Jackie Stewart!
I'll discover a tale of triumph.
It puts Jackie Stewart amongst the all-time greats.
And tragedy.
It was in the fifth lap that something went wrong.
I was in tears when I put my visor down.
Jackie Stewart was an icon to a generation who changed motorsport forever.
The most important thing to me is to live to be a very old man.
And now I'm going to experience the Jackie Stewart story. To me, the 1960s, 1970s for Formula One was a magical era. But when you're looking back at those old races, these cars were like sideways most of the time, proper driving.
I think out of that era came huge legends.
Nobody has ever seen the finish of a motor race like that.
Jackie Stewart racing towards the finishing line.
In my opinion, Jackie Stewart is the greatest person in the history of motorsport.
I think most people would regard Jackie as the master of the art.
Just look at what he has done.
Sir Jackie Stewart is a 3-time Formula One world champion.
It's Jackie Stewart!
His high-profile safety campaign changed the sport forever.
If I did not prepare myself for an accident, I think I'd be a fool.
For all of Jackie's clever thinking, there underlies a tremendous driving talent.
And the sideburns got longer, and the longer they got, the faster I got. The Scottish thing, it was a big deal.
Jackie raced during a golden era. He and Helen were members of a Formula One rat pack, a handful of superstars who shared a closeness that would be unthinkable today.
There was a great camaraderie and a great group of people. Graham Hill, one of the funniest men you could ever have. Jim Clark, one of the most introverted but genuine men you would have ever known. Jochen, most exciting. And we all lived together. And with that, so many people were getting killed. And therefore, people acted in a different way. And we had 2 little boys. That was my biggest fear, that something would happen. And Helen would be left with them.
But I wanted to go back to the very start of the story, and I was about to discover that Jackie's love of cars began on the forecourt of his parents' garage. Growing up, Jackie couldn't wait to join the family business as an apprentice mechanic.
When I was 15, left school with a dyslexic problem. I was a disaster at school. When you can't keep up with the rest of your friends, it's not a nice thing. You're called stupid, dumb and thick by your teachers, and that was a fact. I had no self-respect, I had no esteem, I was totally complexed. I mean, I was bitter and twisted that I was so much of a failure inside of me. So I had to prove myself, I suppose, looking back now.
And prove himself he did.
My shooting life was hugely important to my motor racing life. To try and avoid a miss, I'd get myself ready, I'd get myself relaxed, I would breathe correctly, and then I would go for the target. So you remove emotion. That's what I did while shooting, and I learned that from shooting. I won most of my races in the first 5 laps, because everybody else was all wound up.
His love of cars soon became too much to ignore. In 1962, a customer at his parents' garage offered him a test run in a sports car. He posted a time that was so impressive, he attracted the attention of talent spotter Ken Tyrrell.
I'd heard that he'd been driving very quickly, and I invited him down to drive my Formula 3 car. And he put up such a terrific performance in that car that there wasn't any doubt in my mind then that he was going to be a very fine driver indeed.
And driving a BRM was the up-and-coming Jackie Stewart.
After winning the F3 championship, Jackie was signed to BRM as an F1 driver in 1965. His teammate, world champion Graham Hill.
It was an ideal opportunity to go up against someone who was extremely well regarded.
Jackie learned a lot from my dad about how to become a professional racing driver.
BRM's first and second
And although they were in mortal combat in races, the relationship between my dad and Jackie was pretty good.
But I also like him as a friend too.
There's a good deal of clowning about before BRM goes on to win once again.
There was no, he's the number 2, I'm the number 1, you just sit back and watch. None of that.
It was in the Italian Grand Prix that Graham Hill's number 2 first showed he had the potential to be number 1.
There was a group of us, and eventually we drew away from some of them.
Clark's Lotus let him down, and he had to retire.
And it was left with Graham and I with quite a few laps still to go.
This was the chance for the BRMs to get their own back. Jackie Stewart in one of them.
And he and Graham had a real old tear-up that just went on and on and on.
The two of them were racing hard for that Monza victory.
We were given a signal by Tony Rudd, the team manager, ease off, because we had such a big lead. And yet we were actually going as fast, if not faster. In the end, Graham made a mistake. I went through on the inside and took about a 3-second lead.
Jackie Stewart in one of them brought off a fantastically narrow win, beating Hill in the other BRM by just over 3 seconds.
It was Jackie who came out on top that day at Monza and took his first ever Grand Prix win.
The Italian crowd is the most passionate crowd in the world, and they stream onto the racetrack and give you such a welcome and such recognition. Graham was fantastic. Not once did he complain, and it must have been frustrating for him because in quite a few occasions I would be quicker than him.
And into the lead, Jackie Stewart's BRM number 12.
Jackie's second season as a Formula 1 driver couldn't have started better.
With Jackie Stewart the winner on the road to the championship.
Having won the first race at Monaco, he arrived in Belgium with high hopes.
Completing the front rank, Jackie reported.
But it was a race that would change everything for Jackie.
And we're all set for the on.
Motor racing is dangerous. There's a mystique about danger. There's an attraction, but you don't want to be having accidents. To finish first you must finish.
But Spa 1966 was a race Jackie was never to finish.
And that's all we've seen. Only 6 cars have gone through at the end of the first lap.
I had no idea what had happened to Jackie, but another 2 wives. One sort of drowned about half a bottle of whiskey. One went hysterical because they had no idea what happened.
The drivers encountered a fierce rainstorm at the 145-mile-an-hour corner at the bottom of the hill, and that was where Graham Hill saw in the field the other BRM, that of Jackie Stewart, upside down with Jackie still in it.
Jackie bounced off a wall off the front of a cottage and landed with his BRM literally banana-shaped around him.
And I was soaked in fuel, high-octane aviation fuel in those days that was burning my skin right off me. And there was nobody there. No marshals, no help.
He was in his own bomb. But that day wasn't going to be his 10th of a second. It just wasn't.
And that was the day that he formulated his creed that he was paid to show his skill and not to show his bravery.
Despite his experience at Spa, life was good for Jackie. He had become a key part of the racing fraternity and was best friends with Scottish ace Jim Clark.
You've travelled most of the way this season behind Jim Clark, Graham. What would you say is his most outstanding characteristic as a racing driver?
Well, I think getting across the line first. It's a bit irritating, actually.
Do you always know when he's behind you, Jim?
Yes, I can always recognise that moustache anywhere.
Well, gentlemen, look, seriously now, next year, change of formula, bigger engines. What does this mean to the firm of Hill and Clark?
Well, speaking as an old man, I'm rather looking forward to it. Jimmy, unfortunately, has got to use one of our engines, so just to show there's no ill feeling, I'm personally going to assemble his.
He was the best driver I ever raced against.
I think it's impossible to overemphasise just how important Jimmy Clark was to Jackie. You know, they even shared a flat together at one point.
The fellow Scot took Jackie under his wing and helped him adjust to life in Formula 1.
I learned so much from Jim Clark, seeing him, how he dressed, how he ate, how he talked, how he wasn't infatuated by his own success. And I spent my life as a professional racing driver trying to do just that.
Jackie was hungry for the same success as his friend Jim, but his BRM car was becoming less and less competitive. To win a world title, he needed to be in a better vehicle. Fortunately, he was approached by the man who first discovered him, Ken Tyrrell.
I said, Ken, you don't have a racing team, you don't have Formula 1. He said, but what if I had? I said, well, then we could talk about it.
They never actually signed a contract between the two of them. They shook hands on it, and that became their contract.
And we just had a gentleman's understanding.
Tyrrell sourced a car that would suit the Scot and built a team around him. Jackie's future was full of promise, but his commitment to racing was about to be put under intense emotional strain.
It was in the 5th lap that something went wrong. Clark's car had not reappeared in front of the timekeeper.
Jim Clark ran off the road, hit a tree, and suffered unsurvivable head injuries, and the car was smashed to pieces and broken in two.
Helen was the one who broke the news to Jackie, and Jackie recalls just sobbing his heart out.
If Jim Clark could die, anybody could die. He would have been the last person we would have expected to lose in a race car.
Jackie responded to the death of his hero in the only way he knew how. With the greatest performance of his entire life.
You can call it the Grand Prix that nearly got lost. Lost in fog and torrential rain, 3,000 feet up in the Eiffel Mountains.
They were conditions in which a race would not even be started these days. And it's one of the great motor racing drives of all time.
Beat everybody by almost a lap. And you don't do that unless you're a real virtuoso, one of the real greats.
Scottish driving age Jackie Stewart, number 6 in a Metro Ford, was piloting his car as though he had built-in radar.
When they're in those conditions, and to show such enormous balls in driving at that rate, just put him onto a plane that was so far ahead of everybody else, it was just untouchable. And it's one that justified his stance on safety in later years, because nobody could accuse him of being cheeky.
Stewart took the checkered flag at an average speed of 86.82 miles an hour.
Jackie and Team Tyrrell had shown the world what they were capable of. But many people doubted that a new team could win the 1969 world title.
He was a world champion in the making, but he hadn't done it yet. So for Jackie Stewart to take the gamble and say, yeah, you know what, I'm going to go with Ken Tyrrell and his new team, that was a gamble, but it paid off big time.
This left the field wide open for Jackie Stewart in his Anglo-French Metro Ford.
He had an overpowering effect on my way of thinking, my preparation, my commitment.
The man with his sights set on the 1969 Drivers' Championship.
And to allow my natural ability to be able to display itself.
And Jackie Stewart fulfills the promise that talent spotter Ken Tyrrell saw in him.
1969, I think I won 6 Grand Prix. I think 4 of them back to back.
Ken Stewart holds the line on this, the last lap. Somebody's challenging, it's Ritz going through. It's over the line together, and it's almost a dead heat. It's Jackie Stewart. Nobody has ever seen the finish of a motor race like that.
After a triumphant season, Jackie won his first world title, aged just 29.
Ken Tyrrell and the mechanics, the Matra designers and everyone else really put the thing together in a very good package. Really, it was only left for me to drive the car because I think we had a pretty perfect setup.
I almost inherited the Jim Clark position as the leader within Formula 1.
15 years ago, Jackie Stewart got Fangio's autograph. Now he's the idol, one of the new generation making fortunes in sport.
He's the best racing driver driving today. As a businessman, I think he may be even better.
By the end of the 60s, Jackie had hit the big time. Hear that? This exotic supercar was the stuff of many a boyhood fantasy. And when Jackie's sponsor Ford bought the Italian manufacturer, he was the recipient of a new company car. For Jackie Stewart, getting home is a treat.
It was the swingy 60s to begin with. The lifestyle was synonymous with money.
The first race in the 1972 Grand Prix season.
The 70s began with Jackie Stewart as the reigning world champion. But the French company who built his winning car refused to supply Tyrrell for the new season. That meant they had to buy an off-the-shelf alternative.
The world champion's number on a March. A brand new body, Ford Cosworth engine.
Now, Jackie had little chance of keeping up with Austrian star Jochen Rindt in his expertly engineered Lotus.
You've had a very good chance to look at the new cars on the track. Which of them impresses you most?
Actually, none of them impresses me very much because they're all the same.
As Jackie struggled in his slow, unreliable car, Rindt drew ever closer to the world title.
I think the fastest at the moment is certainly Jochen Rindt.
The Austrian ace now has a commanding lead of 20 points in the championship.
But despite their rivalry, Jackie and Helen were close friends with Jochen and his wife.
Jochen was great, and Nina was fantastic. She was one of the most beautiful women in the world. He was somebody who was an important part of my life, and one of the drivers I would have trusted under any circumstance.
But Rindt's season ended in tragedy.
I literally was there by his side, I mean, literally. And they wouldn't admit that he had died, because in Italy, had he died on the track, they would have had to cancel that Grand Prix for the weekend. I was in tears when I put my visor down. And I went out and I passed the spot that Jochen died, and then I got on it. And I did the fastest lap I'd ever done.
But the death of the Austrian star was just one of many. In 1970, 3 drivers died in 3 months.
Jochen was in September, Piers Courage was in June, and so also was Bruce McLaren in June. And somehow or other, it was part and parcel of life at that time. And the shock, the despair, the grief will never be erased. Jochen, in fact, won the World Championship in 1970, the first posthumous world champion ever.
That year, Jochen's wife, Nina, collected the world title on his behalf. Off the track, Jackie took his safety campaign to a whole new level.
You're all wearing seat belts, you have to. It's entirely your responsibility.
The most important thing to me is to live, be a very old man. If I did not prepare myself for an accident by using the best helmet, the best clothes, the best thermal underwear, the best seat belts, I think I would be irresponsible. I think I'd be a fool.
Crash barriers, run-off areas, and flame-proof protection were just a few of the things that Jackie pushed for.
Terribly important that everyone pays the right amount of attention.
Everyone from car designers to track owners were at the receiving end of his battle for safety.
Jackie was not the most popular driver. Certainly not with some commentators who thought he was taking the masculinity out of the sport.
If these people are afraid of racing, will give up.
People thought Jackie Stewart was a wimp. The attitude in those days was, the throttle works both ways. If you're going too fast, then back off a bit.
But Jackie didn't stop at motorsport. He used his star profile to put safety on the agenda in every walk of life.
Now, I've lost friends very close to me, and I tell you, it hits you very, very hard.
If you're walking on the pavement or crossing a road, I think you've got to give as much concentration to what you're doing as I have to when I'm driving my racing car.
But on the track, Jackie still had a job to do. And to make sure he had the right car to do it in, Ken Tyrrell commissioned his own Formula One vehicle.
Ken, without anybody knowing, got Derek Gardner, a wonderful designer, had designed this car in his own living room. I would go up secretly and get into his garage and get seat fittings for this car of the future.
The Tyrrell F1 car was ready for the 1971 season. But would the homemade car perform on the world stage?
Jackie Stewart hadn't won a Grand Prix since his Spanish victory a year ago.
And sure enough, it came out and immediately was fast.
After 5 laps, Stewart took the lead, and there he stayed.
6 Grand Prix victories, won in the World Championship for the second time, and the manufacturer's title for Ken Tyrrell. And puts the name of Jackie Stewart firmly amongst the all-time greats of motor racing.
The Flying Scot was back, and in Monza, he was crowned double world champion.
Beside your undisputed skill, damn it, what single factor do you think contributed towards your victories this year?
I think, again, my skill. But this year, perhaps more than ever before, on the straights.
I thought you were certainly driving extremely well on the straights. I must agree with that. Now, superlative skill, but you won 6 Grand Prix, which is, is hogging it slightly. How do you view? I mean, there's 7 Grand Prix as the sort of record. You're obviously hoping for this. Where do you think that you could have done it and it didn't happen?
I don't think that's a fair question.
By 1972, Jackie was a global superstar, but his relentless drive for success was pushing him over the edge.
This year was different somehow. I was very tired, I was very uptight, and I couldn't unwind.
I just destroyed myself health-wise. I was just burned out. I missed a few Grand Prix. I lost the World Championship. I finished second in the World Championship that year. And then I thought I might retire because I was feeling so bad.
There's puddles around the track. The place is a mess.
And maybe in the wet you can accept that.
I should think I will be able to accept it.
Well, anyway.
April of 73, I made a complete decision that I was going to retire, but I would race until the end of the year for Ken's sake.
But Jackie made the decision, knowing he was handing over the reins to a safe pair of hands, his young understudy, Francois Seber.
A very promising #2 in the Tyrrell team.
For Jackie, there were 2 aims, I think, that year. To wrap up another title, to end on a high, but to give Francois that little leg up to make sure that he could continue in that vein for the Tyrrell family, which was so important to all of them.
And then, second, first for the left, the right one, and
There was an affection there, a genuine affection that Jackie had for Francois.
He was part of the Stewart family.
you would think that Jackie teaching me everything he knows, I will become another Jackie Stewart.
Team Tyrrell had a bright future. All Jackie had to do was go out in style.
In 1973, we just couldn't do a thing wrong. They were like two brothers on the same team.
Jackie kept his decision to retire a secret and approached his final season with renewed vigour.
Jackie Stewart racing towards the finishing line. With teammate Sever second, a triumph for Stewart and the British Tyrrell fourth.
The eyes being cast on the front row, which was none.
The end of that season was at Watkins Glen, and Jackie had already wrapped the championship up. That was just going to be his 100th race.
And Friday we practiced and we were quick. We looked like we could win the race.
On the eve of Jackie's final race, Ken Tyrrell came to him with a master plan.
Everybody would love it if you're leading the race and you move over and let Francois win. And I said, oh, Ken, you know, you're asking a lot. This is my last race ever. if I can win the race, I'd love to. He said, yeah, but you'd be even bigger if you didn't.
Mr. Sedair was the winner of the 1971 Grand Prix of the United States.
Certainly there is no noise, and there is no cars coming back to the pit.
François Sever was killed in an absolutely appalling accident.
I was one of the last to arrive, and there was debris everywhere. And Francois was still pretty much half in the car. I would hate for anybody to see that. I was so shocked by it, but then I was so angry that the sport could do this. Everybody in the team were terribly affected, naturally.
Jackie got together with Ken Tyrrell and they decided they were going to withdraw the team.
That was how it ended for Tyrrell that year, and certainly that's how Jackie Stewart's career ended.
He missed his 100th Grand Prix. He achieved his World Championship for the third time, but he did it in very tragic circumstances.
I then said I was no longer going to be a racing driver. It was a decision I have never, ever regretted. I was never tempted ever to go back. It just never entered my head.
Years on, Francois has his own bench in the grounds of the Stewart's house, along with dozens of Jackie's fallen comrades.
New face here at our sports gathering. Jackie Stewart, the motor racing driver, had a great first season too in the big time.
Very pleasing, yes.
Now what about the old men, people like Hill and Clark?
Well, Hill's pretty old, but Clark's coming along. He's only 29.
Somebody's challenging, it's Ritt going through. Jock and Ritt takes the lead in the Parabolica on the last corner, on the last lap. And it's going to be a French match to win. It must be. It's over the line together. And it's almost a dead heat. It's Jackie Stewart, Ritt, Beltoise and McLaren. Nobody has ever seen the finish of a motor race like that.
And to interview Jackie Stewart, we've invited from hospital his friend and great rival, Graham Hill.
What particular advantage has this car got over, say, the car I was driving?
Well, it's faster, Graham.
Well, I'll buy you a drink for saying that. That's fabulous. Thank you very much. Now, have you had did you have any sort of funny moments during the year that you could talk about?
Not very many. Very many I can talk about. But
no, neither did I. Now you come to mention that. Anyway, Jackie, I'd like to congratulate you for a fabulous season. I'd like to wish you a lot of luck for next year. Not quite as much as myself, but I hope you succeed with this new car that you're going to be driving.
Well, I wish you good fortune too, Bill.
Thank you, Jackie. We, I use the royal we, are delighted, of course, that you retired. And I can't tell you how much we're going to miss you. I just can't tell you.
Well,
not here, anyway.
Graham, I only hope that the example that I'm giving in this direction will allow a few more to retire, and then I might sneak back in.
Yeah. Now, a couple of years ago, I remember you told us that it was your sort of skill and dexterity, not to mention daring, that sort of brought you to the championship in that year. Now, is there anything you'd like to add to it for this year?
No, it's the same sort of talent that I've been able to bring out again.
Yeah.
Same old stuff. I seem to remember that it was on the straight that year that I gained most.
Yeah.
Well, I've been working on the corners, and this is one of the reasons that I've retired.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you for joining us on another edition of Misfits TV, where we had a look at the career of Sir Jackie Stewart.
On the next edition, we'll have a look at the legendary Graham Hill. If you like our videos, please like, subscribe and comment. Thank you.